I am so deeply grateful to be here. It is such an honor. And I'm so grateful to USP. This has become my family. And I'm so grateful to Walter and Leo. Walter came into my life in 2018 while I was experiencing some of the most intense, craziest journeys in my meditation. And his book, The Secret of Light, fell into my lap, and I knew that I had found one of my best friends who could describe and articulate so precisely what I was experiencing within. And today my intention is to bring us a little bit out of concept and bring us into the experiencing of God, the experience of light, through play, through awareness, through noticing, and understanding how trauma and suffering works in the body and how we can transcend through this by being present with it instead of avoiding and pushing it down and repressing it. Who remembers what it's like to be a little child? Anybody? In the gospel, it says that we must become like a little child again to access the kingdom of heaven. And I have wondered for years what Jesus has been talking about. And I noticed that him as a teacher for me, a profound teacher, has brought me into just that. To become like a little child again, to feel, to be alive. And so I want you to just imagine for a moment one of your favorite memories when you were a child. See if anything comes up. A moment where you felt so free and alive and unrestricted, where you felt that holy presence. So one of my favorite memories is me every time I come home from school and I'd go into my TV room and I'd put on the TV and I would play The Sound of Music. And I would sing to it and I'd dance every day. I was obsessed. So obsessed that my parents brought me to Austria and offered me the opportunity to go and visit. And that gazebo, I always say that. I tried to, if you ever watch that movie, they're dancing and they're jumping from bench to bench. And I tried to do that when I was a little girl, but my legs were way too short. So I want to bring us into an activity of presence, and I need a volunteer. Who would like to volunteer and come up here and experience life and creation? Please. Now, everybody who's watching home on Zoom, thank you so much for your presence. And I encourage you in this moment to just find something right near you and pick it up and bring it into your hands. What is your name?
Veronique.
Veronique?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Where are you from?
New York, Aix-en-Provence.
Wonderful. So I'm going to bring this into your hands. Now, everybody has a piece of ginkgo on their table, and I'm going to ask you to bring it into your hands. You have the grapes. I was walking this morning talking to God, and I'm improvising all this, by the way. I had no idea what I was going to say. I have a little bit of a structure and guidance, but this is what Spirit brought me into today, that still, undivided light. And so everybody picking up their ginkgo or these grapes, and I would just want you to notice it. How do you feel? How do you feel when you observe it, when you notice it? Notice the feeling. Notice whatever it invokes for you. And for you, I would ask, what do you notice about these grapes?
There's a coolness to it, a liveliness to it.
A liveliness?
A liveliness.
A liveliness, a
alive.
coolness.
And colors, the different colors.
What colors do you notice?
The greens, the blue, the purplish.
Mm-hmm. And what about the smell?
I didn't get there.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Earthy.
Earthy smell.
And one dropped into my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the shape, of course, right? And it's a gift.
And it's a gift. You are welcome to take that gift back with you.
Thank you.
May it bless you. My grandfather was a grape farmer. And so I thought it very special this morning that I noticed those grapes on my walk. So just coming back into the presence with the ginkgo leaf, just feeling it, noticing, observing, noticing how your body is responding in this connection. And congratulations, you just entered the present moment. I love the earth because she always brings me back. She helps me to become like a little child again. And every time I go out, like in my walk this morning, and I saw these grapes, and I got so excited, and I started talking to them, and they were starting to talk to me. And it brought me out of my head because I heard, I'm supposed to improv this. I have a structure, but I really want to bring us into experience. I want to bring this in the fullness. Whatever I'm here to deliver, I am just the messenger. And so we're going to talk a little bit. What happened? What happened to us? When we were children, we were playful, we were buoyant, we were expressive, and a lot of the times our parents, while they loved us so much, they're like, shh, be quiet. Shh, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. Please be quiet. And we've all done this. You know, there's times that I have had to do this with my children, right? So I'm just checking if it's going to be, Richard, if it's going to be moving with me. Aha! So the difference between the child and the adult in the modern world. So what happened? Well, there is absolutely many children in our world, especially now, who go through a lot of traumatic experiences. But a lot of us, even in the modern world, even if we came from relatively normal, functional parents and family systems, we were taught to numb, we were taught to avoid, and to shove down our aliveness, to shove it down. When we got into our schools, which I respectfully call mental institutions, because it makes us mental, tell us to sit down. When I was a counselor and I worked with children in schools, they had me come in there to basically train them to sit and to be obedient. And all the time I cried, and I knew that this was wrong. And so I had an amazing boss, and I said, you know, I'm working with kids who are extremely traumatized, who've been violent, who are struggling at home, whose families are divorced, their families are suffering. Let me take these children outside and play. And the school allowed me to do just that. And so we went out and played. And I remember I was thinking about this little boy today. He was the embodiment of joy, the embodiment of joy. And I would take him out into the woods in Montpelier, Vermont, and we would build fires together. And he would climb trees. And what was happening for him was he was allowing himself to be expressed, and thus all of that pain and all the things that he was really bottling up that the school wouldn't allow him and the parents wouldn't allow him, he was able to release and thus what we call emotionally regulate. And so when we're bottling up, when we're really intense and we're not allowed to express ourselves, where does it go? So Walter Russell said, for ages man has thought of matter as being substance. Posterity must learn to think of matter as motion only. One of my great sufferings in this life has been addiction. And I have gone down so many rabbit holes of understanding it. I was born to a beautiful, beautiful family, but a family that struggled immensely with addiction. My drug of choice was first cannabis, and then it went into alcohol. And what was so difficult for me was I would have these extreme dualistic experiences where I would experience God and this light and this beauty and this creative force. And then I was living in a profound family of suffering. And so it wasn't safe to be myself. It wasn't safe to express. I'd go to school, and there was really nobody there who was trauma-informed and could understand what I was going through. And so I was blamed, and so I had to shove it all down, and eventually once I got to high school, I found a solution. I said, I'll smoke weed, eventually I'll drink alcohol, and at least I can be myself finally. And I was a pretty wild drunk because I was finally free. But after a while, what we know is that any addiction disconnects us. Any physical addiction, anything outside of us that we're seeking over and over and over again is inherently disconnecting. And so I was in a battle with myself and with life. And yet somehow that great undivided light, that which we call God, the Creator, the great Holy One, the Holy Spirit was still guiding me, still loving me, still encouraging me. You can do this. I'm going to show you this really, really beautiful truth and what is needed. And so we need to move, right? I don't believe that Walter said that we just, we're going to dismiss matter. He taught us, right, that we are addicted to our senses. We are addicted to our senses. Walter said what he calls his objective human mind is but the seat of electrical sensations of his body. What he mistakes for thinking is but an electric awareness of things sensed and recorded within the cells of his brain for repetitive usage through what is termed memories. Wow. This is why I fell in love with Walter Russell. I was like, he gets it. He gets it. So what happens with trauma? Why are we addicted to the outer sensory realm? What happens is when there's a perceived trauma, we know this now. It doesn't actually have to be happening outside of us. It could be happening internally. But whatever we perceive as a threat, and the amygdala, as Jeffrey and Diana spoke about yesterday, it starts to become activated. It sends a signal to our adrenal glands, which produces cortisol and adrenaline, and we start to go into what we call fight or flight. Now, what we know now with the most incredible researchers that are really sharing so much information with us, neuroscientists, is that when that threat system activates and we don't move it because matter is motion, it gets stuck. It gets stuck. If we can't fight, if we can't flee, or freeze, we get stuck. And so the system, the physiological system, with the Creator, this intelligent design, this intelligence, see, our bodies are intelligent. Our bodies are not the enemy. And unfortunately, a lot of doctrine, religious doctrine, has dismissed the power of the body, has dismissed its intelligence because we have perceived it as a source of suffering. And we struggle. We have a lot of pain in our bodies, right? But through movement and through working through this, through entering into the body, we will find that stillness. We will find that release. So what's the consequences? We maladapt to our environment. And this is my theory, at least, of why the world is the way it is. We are not truly, and I'm not singling out, but as a collective species right now, we are not in our authentic expression, in our embodiment, and in our aliveness. We are coping. We are repressing, and we are numbing, and we are avoiding. And I know it. I did everything to cope, to suppress, to numb, and to avoid. And God was like, I'm going to back you up in the corner because you're not going to get away with that because you love me too much. And you want to be alive, and I'm going to show you how to become alive again. Oh, it disappeared. So what happens is that, and I'm not going to go into the whole science of it, when there's trauma in the system, when we've been conditioned to suppress and avoid, we actually become more identified with the outer sensory world. Because essentially, we're in a particular brainwave state, We're operating in beta, mostly. We're operating in survivalism. When we're in survival, we are essentially materialists. This is why I've been so dedicated. My life, I've experienced poverty, I've experienced trauma, I've experienced all this stuff kept me in survival mode. And God said, keep moving your body. So we need to move through it rather than avoid it. That is the only way that we're going to get out of survival mode. We have been, especially in America, we have been indoctrinated and normalized survival mode. We live off of caffeine. We live off of now, especially the stimulus response system of social media, of reactivity. We have confused intelligence, true intelligence. Walter called it the mind of God. But it's not, and as he says, our thinking is not truly of God, okay? But we're confusing our thinking for truth. And the only way to do is to release, to move through and to feel. And that's really difficult, isn't it? Especially for people who have been through extreme trauma. I'm a very big proponent of harm reduction. I know people, and I've personally worked with thousands of people, including myself, who have gone through war, who have gone through so many extreme situations, that to feel all at once is going to, what we call in nervous system work, flood their system. And they're going to automatically shut down because the body is so intelligent. It's only trying to protect us. It is not our enemy. I'm sorry, my Mac is on this thing where it shuts down. So rather than believing, we believe, maladapting, we're believing that the physical world is happening around us. It's happening to us, right? And what's happening is when we're suppressing and we're numbing and we're avoiding, we're disconnected from our truth. We're disconnected from feeling, which helps us to discern what is real, what is really happening. We're not realizing that it is truly coming from within, that there's a pattern system that's playing out, a waveform that's playing out, because this is how life is built, right? In patterns. Russell showed us this. So if we cannot feel, we do not know what is real. We live in a time of great deception. We live in a time of the age of information, technology. Our species is rapidly changing. What do most children do these days? Yeah, they're on their phones. They're disconnected. They're connecting to the virtual world, but they're disconnected from their living presence, from their living body that God created for us to enjoy, to play. And we might want to blame the parents, but as a parent myself, I understand. As a single mom myself, I understand that sometimes I'm exhausted. And if I'm not in my center that day, and my daughter is like, very much being a 9-year-old, being alive, and I got work to do, I'm like, here's the device. And this is sad. And what we have seen through some of the negative consequences of the internet and social media is higher suicide rates, especially amongst adolescents. More distraction, less ability to concentrate and focus, and a general sense of disconnection. During COVID, we were all asked to stay in our houses, and what did we do? Many, many, many stared at the screen. We wanted to know what was going on. Is this Ebola, or is this just like the flu? We didn't know. This was a very traumatic event that we went through as a human species. And my hypothesis is that when I study the nervous system and I study how trauma works, we have not even thawed out yet from that experience. We just went back to normal. And we're not blaming anybody, but we need to notice and become aware of the consequences thereof. Because what happens is that when trauma and these things happen, And we're avoiding, and we don't have circles, and we don't have dialogues, and we can't come together and to express, to feel, to emote, to be with the pain and the suffering, to be with those that lost their lives from COVID or overdose. Overdose rates were the highest amongst COVID. Some speculate that more people died of overdose than COVID itself. We normalize it. We go back to normal, and yet we're not normal. We're suppressed, and we're hurting, and we're more disconnected than ever. And so what we need to do is that we need to go back to feeling, right? This is what I'm saying. Go back to feeling. Oh, it's hard. See, when I was electrocuted, it was kind of like, anybody see like or read the comics or watch the movies X-Men? Yeah. I felt pretty like a mutant after that, right? And this was like full on. This wasn't a shock. This was full on. My near-death experiences showed me the power of the undivided light. It showed me the power that resides within me. Every single time, something came and saved me. Now, for many years, I thought it was like angels. And then I started to realize, oh, maybe that was me and God. And I don't really know how to describe it with words, but something saved my life. After that experience with electrocution, I could feel so much. I can feel your thoughts. I could feel everything. And I was very confused for a long time. Is it mine? Is it theirs? And now it's starting getting real trippy, right? Because we are in this sea of cosmic wave energy. And it's hard to know where the boundary field is. When we heal trauma, what we're doing is that we're actually healing the boundary field. We're healing our no's and our yeses. So suffering arises from avoiding and sedating, controlling pain and discomfort. Now, we have been so trained and domesticated as a species. Think about how the modern day school system arose. It arose from really factory work, right? Very mechanical, very machine-based, very repetitious, very, very efficient. We're producing efficient workers. And that's great. But we're not as much of alive. So we've been very conditioned. And most of us don't have this conscious awareness until we start to journey into our body, into the felt experience. Because what starts to happen when you start to go inside the body and begin to notice it is that there's all this stuff. When I did my first 10-day silent meditation retreat, for the first 6 days, I was so angry. There was just anger. And I watched my mind. I was blaming everybody. Well, she did this, and he did that, and I hate them, and I hate the world, and blah, 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 blah. And then on day 6, something happened. And this is the key, right? A lot of times people, when they meditate, they're just trying to think about it and think about it. They're trying to control. They're like, I'll say a mantra over and over and over and over again. Well, that's cool. Some people are like, we're going to program our subconscious mind. That will work if you are emotionally moving and you're keeping everything moving, but it will not work. This is why all those wealth affirmations and people trying to get wealthy and they're saying their affirmations all day long, but they're not seeing results because the memory system, our relationship with, say, money, is stored in the pattern nervous system, in the memory system, epigenetically as well, right? And so what we need to do is to journey within. And we're going to notice a lot of stuff that we don't like, and that's going to feel so very uncomfortable. And what my Buddhist meditation practice taught me was the power of equanimity. Is that when I'm going inside of my body, I have to learn to watch it and to be with it exactly as it is. Think about how difficult that can be for us, especially right now. With all the tragedies and all of the things that are happening in our country, the level of polarization, all of the beliefs and the ideas, it's very difficult to be with what is. What just happened this past weekend, a couple days ago? Look at North Carolina. It's underwater. Bless our friends. It's very difficult to be with the suffering, to be with it. And what I have learned that this is the only way that we're going to come from concept of God into experience of God. And that's what we're searching for. We really, really are. And so we have to break the patterns. We have to break the patterns inside of us. And this, you will see, this actually happens on a neurophysiological level. Is that when we start to become present in the moment, like with that ginkgo leaf, something starts to shift. When I did my first meditation retreat, I've known suffering very well. And for the first time since I was a little child, no, I'm wrong about that. It was for the first time since I had done my previous meditation retreat, which was a different one, which was actually Raj Yoga, learning how to meditate and study the discipline of the mind, right? I've been obsessed with the mind. Studied psychology. I love the mind. I love learning all these things. I am a recovering analysis. I am, totally. When I got to that day 6 in that first meditation retreat, something started to happen. My mind started to quiet down. All those sensations in the body that felt so uncomfortable started to quiet down. And all of a sudden, I went into what Walter Russell would say is the 0 point. What one of my greatest teachers, Adyashanti, says is embodied awareness. Full-bodied awareness. And something happens when we're there. Everything comes online. I can only imagine if we look at what's happening in the brain. Because now we are accessing the kingdom within. Now we are accessing that light, that undivided light that I know that Walter experienced in his illumination, in his revelation, that we all have access to. Religion has done a very good job convincing us that we need somebody to get us there. And sometimes we do need help. If we've been through a lot of trauma, we might need a co-regulator. Think about when you're really upset, something really happens. Maybe somebody dies, there's a great loss in your life, and you need comfort, right? Does it help if somebody's just talking at you and telling you how to fix it? No. What was really helpful is a nice big hug. This is a really good practice. Next time you're really upset and nobody's around and you're really having a hard time, give yourself a hug. Give yourself a hug. The body is the container of all emotion. So if the body and the emotional system, the limbic system is not regulated, it's going to be very difficult to process what's happening. I was having a conversation, and what I've noticed in my practice of meditation and journeying is that when I get into that still point and there's no thoughts anymore and there's just pure awareness, something activates in my heart. It's like we have this physical heart. Organizations like HeartMath have observed that our heart is like the key. It is the intuitive intelligence. HeartMath did a study, and they said that the human heart is perceiving events 6 seconds before it happens. Now, I think it's a lot faster. I think it's longer. I perceived COVID 10 years. I had the vision. I saw everything, and I ran to the woods in Vermont because I was scared. Not knowing that God was leading me on a journey. I saw it 10 years ahead. I saw 9/11 before it happened. So I think that our hearts can perceive a lot more faster, but at least with the limited, apparatus that we have in science, these physical instruments, Walter always reminds us that we are studying the effect, but we need to go back to the cause, right? This is the true key of balancing. This is the true key of knowing our Creator. This is what's going to produce this next wave of revolution that's going to happen scientifically. We know this. This is why we're here today, because we believed in what Walter Russell said, and because we resonate with it, because something inside of us, even if we don't have all the scientific intelligence and awareness, says this is truth. He figured something out. He tapped in. The man who tapped the secrets of the universe. What Walter calls the mind of God, Richard, my dear friend, and I, we thought, well, the mind of God is not like the mind of man. Maybe it's more of like this cosmic heart. But again, we're limited by our senses. And what I've noticed in meditation is when I go in that still point, I notice that there's this invisible heart, and everything starts to pulsate, and I can feel it all so very alive. So we can't avoid, we have to feel. And the only way to heal is by coming into the present moment. But if we've been through a lot of stuff or we've been conditioned, we have to start to begin the baby steps. And so to complete this transmission, I'm going to invite us for a couple moments to just close our eyes. And this is a journey of embodied awareness. Rather than seeking to run away from the body, disconnecting our genius from our body, our spirit from our body, we're going to go inside. We're going to notice the interior landscape. And so just bringing yourself as much as you can into noticing your breath. Just noticing it, not trying to change, control, or fix it. Just being with it exactly as it is. Begin to notice the weight of your body on the seat. And just allowing, relaxing into, noticing how that seat loves you. It's supporting you the whole time. That's how much you are loved. Just noticing your seat supporting you, noticing the weight of your body, giving yourself permission to just drop in a little bit deeper. And you might notice uncomfortable sensations or tensions, and just allow those to be there just as they are. Just be very curious about them. Rather than pushing them away or clinging to them, get curious like a little child. Compassionately. If there's a lot of pain, if you've been through injuries, if you've been through a lot of psychological, emotional trauma, just approach it very tenderly and see how much you can feel into that tension. Feel it just as it is. You're not trying to change it, control it, or fix it. You're just being with it. If your mind wanders, that's okay. You're not going to get mad about that either. You're just going to come back to the breath, come back into feeling the sensations. Feeling the sensations in the body, noticing the sensations. Bringing your conscious awareness to this body. The truth is that you are the light of God. You are awareness itself. And this body is just doing its thing. It's not our enemy. Our pain is not our enemy. And we're going to befriend whatever tension, whatever uncomfortability is there. We don't need to push it away anymore. It is our teacher. And as we relax and as we soften and as we notice, you're going to feel, maybe it changes a little bit. Maybe it's not as dense as I thought. Maybe it's okay. It's okay to have this tension. It's okay. And just from your head, slowly go down and just notice, softening into awareness. And see if you can notice the sensations and that vibration of aliveness. Consciously connecting to the body in the present moment, bringing yourself all the way back here and now, and allowing the Creator, the undivided light, to do what it does best, which is to bring everything into balance and harmony. You are not doing anything. You are not the doer. You are the being, experiencing, observing, witnessing, watching. You are just allowing. You're allowing. You're trusting in the creation. In love. That love is the truth. And if you just get a little bit out of your way and allow love to do its thing, what a great reminder. Things start to change. Things start to balance. The system's going to start to either speed up, and that's okay too. A lot of times, if you've never really brought awareness into your body, it's going to speed up. It's going to get more painful. But you got to be with it. Don't run away so fast. Just watch and allow. And in practice and patience, you're going to really begin to notice, because the past is happening not behind us, the past is happening inside of us. And the more that you sit with it, the more the energy can move, because motion and matter are one. And that great holy intelligence, that which we call God, that which we call light, is going to recircuit, reorder, reorganize your entire nervous system, reflecting a quality of embodiment and presence. This will not happen overnight. It is not a quick fix. But if there's any tool that we are going to need in the upcoming times, it is this. Because humanity is being stirred up. All the subconscious materia is being stirred up now. And humanity is confused and scared. Humanity, for the most part, is still looking outside for the answers. And this is an opportune time to start looking inside for the answers. And it is a journey, it is an experience. Fear, anger, grief, they are not our enemies. They are messengers, letting us know, oh, we need to bring attention to it. We need to bring love and presence, just like a child crying. When we start to do this inside of ourselves, we will watch things change rapidly on this planet. We will take care of our planet. Thank you so much.
We would like to open it up for Q&A around some of the things that Ashley talked about, or maybe some other items that were even in her bio. She's a wealth of information. Who would like to start us off with the first question here? Please, thank you.
You mentioned matter in motion.
Yes.
Spontaneous dancing,
Yeah.
skipping, hopping, laughing, giggling.
Yes.
Okay. Other ideas?
One of a big tool for me in healing through trauma has been movement, dance. I love dance. I love music. Music and dance. Music has been one of my greatest tools of healing, because sound, light, sound. We are sound, matter and motion. That's music, right? And so there's 5 Rhythms, which was developed by Gabrielle Roth, an inspiration. I highly recommend her. She understood everything that I shared today. She was a legend. And in ecstatic dance and 5 Rhythms, what we do is that we are not dancing like choreographed. We're coming from the inside. We're feeling from the inside, and we're expressing outwardly. And this is how creation works, right?
Other questions? So, yes, back here. I was already halfway. I must have felt your question coming.
Well, I'll try and formulate this so it makes sense. I think it's best if we can be proactive rather than reactive. And you were saying that you've kind of foreseen some things happening like 9/11 and so forth. So there's the normal things that we do to try and prepare ourselves. So is there anything specific that you can see we should prepare ourselves that's coming in the near future?
It's an excellent question, one that I think millions are asking, especially after COVID, which was a wake-up call. I would have an integrative approach. There's a lot of people who are homesteading now, and that's like a huge wave of popularity. And that's great. We'll learn how to make our own breads and crowd and grow our own food. That's wonderful. That's bringing us back to our primordial roots, our ancestry, our connection. It's empowering us. But one of my loving, compassionate criticisms is like, well, that's all great. But we're working with energy. As Tesla said, everything is sound, frequency, and vibration. So when it gets really intense, what are we going to do? How are we going to self-regulate? How are we going to stay in that still point that is going to be the guiding intelligence of the movement? Because that's what happens when we do this work. Something takes over. There's an intelligent design. Now we're not coming from our programmed, conditioned thoughts. And so doing the emotional work, some would call this shadow work. Some would call it confronting that which we are avoiding. In my personal opinion, this is going to be the number one key. It's that intuitive intelligence. It's listening. It's knowing. It's trusting. And so ultimately what I'm sharing is it's developing a relationship in whichever way that we conceive God.
Question here? Comment? You had your hand up?
What I was going to say to that previous question is you've kind of hit on it with saying that, meditation and everything's within. So through your meditation and connecting to the divinity that you are within, you can pause and relax, go out in nature, whatever, and ask those questions, and you will definitely receive answers.
Yes.
Do you agree? Okay. Oh, and by the way,
Absolutely.
oh, I feel so good now.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
And I think that you just helped to also answer his question. This pausing in between the in-breath and the out-breath is the pause, the rest state. The undivided light is at the rest state. And so pausing, listening, asking. And one has to believe that one is going to receive. As Jesus reminded us, we must believe that we're going to receive. So there is a leap of faith, especially in meditation practice, because when you first start and you sit down, you're antsy. Everything's moving, and the whole sensory perception is still so hooked in the external. Oh, well, I'm in pain. I can't sit there. No, keep going. So we have to believe. We have to have a leap of faith. And faith is dead without works, right? Without action. Okay. Is there
Richard?
somebody else?
Richard?
Yeah.
Hi, Richard.
Hi. So my question really is about prayer and how it works and why it's important and really how to do it in the most powerful way. The Russells give us meditation in Unit 1 and prayer in Unit 2 as the kind of dive into the inner to talk to God and ground and connect, and then through desire to put it out there. So why is prayer worthwhile? How does it work? How do we do that in the most effective way?
Because that's why we love each other so much, Richard. Richard and I pray together all the time. He is like one of my strongest prayer warriors. Why is it effective? For some, I don't think it's always effective. When I was an undergrad and I was studying psychology, I had a professor who did a study for 2 years to see if prayer was effective. But I think he had a confirmation bias. He was Mormon and he was recovering from the Mormon, religion. And so I think he was very hurt. But he saw that prayer wasn't effective at all. And I think Robert touched on that, right? He touched a little bit on this notion that we have to believe in it because we are a co-creator. So I think the first tenet of prayer is believing that it's effective. And I would say it's because we're moving matter. See, now, like I've noticed that through my meditation practice, my prayers can start to move mountains. If it's in the highest will. I'm not perfect, and I don't always know the highest will. I still resist, I still get upset, I still get reactive, because I am quite human and this is a journey. But what I've noticed is that when I can come into that real deep stillness and bring myself there and come from my heart like a child, from a place of innocence. This is actually what really got me sober from alcohol, was I really started to realize, and oh wow, God is working with me. And I can ask for help in a way that I never did before, because I thought I had to figure it out and be in control all on my own. And I realized I had this tremendous resource, which is the truth and the way and the life, which is God, which is the creator, which is the undivided light. Whatever the name that we want to give it, the Tao that can be named has no Tao. And so prayer is effective when we truly believe in it and we come from full expression, Richard, I believe. And when we can come from that still point and center using our mind. See, our mind is powerful. It is an incredible tool. When I bring myself into that stillness, into the somatic awareness, and I'm in my body, and then I align my brain and my thinking with God, magic and miracles happen. Magic and miracles happen. So I think prayer is sound, it's music, it's the movement, it's how all things came into creation. There was light, and it was divided, and then came sound, the word.
I love that because in the illustration of the cosmic clock, they found that Walter had actually called it the Grand Symphony of Creation, so the symphony. Was there one more question in the back here? Any other questions as we begin? Okay, so we have 2 more questions here.
I just heard that Diana and Jeffrey, who spoke yesterday, that the first time they met Leo, they found out that she used to play music to her plants. And I was like, Leo knew.
Wanted to comment on your dialogue about being trapped in the conditioning aspect of our lives. It made me recall in Zen Buddhism, they discuss inherent existence. We all believe something exists because we've been told it is, but that's not necessarily true, I don't believe. If you have a cup, you drink out of it, it's a cup, but if you throw it in the ocean, it's a house for a crab. So it's not inherently what it is. We create that reality.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, lots of thought waves coming through here. Can I scoot behind you? Let's give a hand to our guitarist last night, by the way. He was taking good care of us last night.
So for years and years, is this on?
It's on. He's turning it on now.
So for years and years and years, I've been hearing you have to do the shadow work. You have to do the inner work. What does that mean? I mean, you know, I've been reading, I've been researching, I've been learning, what does it mean to do the shadow work, to do the inner work?
You asked such an important question, and I could talk a while about this. I used to joke and call myself a shadow dancer because I love to stare at the shadow because I wanted to figure myself out, really. And one can really get self-indulgent in the process of shadow work, and that's the danger. What is the shadow? And you know, Robert talked about dark and light yesterday, but if we're going to bring in the shadow, Debbie Ford in her book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, said the shadow is just everything that we suppressed, like we were saying, and we had to, it either got turned up really high or turned down, right? So I'm going to give you an example. I am a communicator. I was born to communicate. And I've also had a very big potty mouth. And my shadow, so to speak, is like when I'm pissed, I'm vicious. I can be vicious. And, use my words unwisely. And so what Debbie Ford would have said to that is like, oh, but your gift is the communication. But somewhere along the line, what probably happened is somebody told you to be quiet and be quiet and be quiet and be quiet. And so what I have found the shadow is like, it manifests, right? It manifests as monsters. It manifests as all sorts of personas and ways of expression that we have deemed evil. But in my work, I've learned that behind it is just a sad, broken, angry, grieving little child that didn't have the opportunity to feel and to express and to just be. And so if you're doing the shadow work, be with the present moment as it is, and whatever is arising. Whatever is arising, that's your work. I think what I came into is I got into analysis paralysis, and I was trying to figure out how to heal through my mind, and that doesn't work. I've learned a lot of knowledge, and I can share a lot of things, but even with all those years of knowledge and studying, when I relapsed back into alcohol, it was like, did I even do any work? And it was, oh, you're still struggling to feel, Ashley, the pain, the grief, the anger. And so whatever is arising in your present moment, that's your teacher. Being as present and connected to it, allowing whatever you're feeling to be there. And then there's ways that, anger can be scary. So there's ways that we can work with anger, right? So we don't hurt people. And one of my favorites is dance.
We have two last thoughts.
Yes.
He's turning it up.
Is it on? Okay, yeah. There's a thought that prayer is connecting to God, but every thought is a prayer.
Yes.
So since every thought is a prayer, your thinking is you're praying all the time.
Yes.
And if you are using this as a way to figure out how to connect to God, then that opens the door to meditation, which allows you to hear Him.
Yes.
Is this an understanding that
Absolutely.
universal?
And I'm so grateful that you shared this, because is our thoughts thinking us, or are we thinking our thoughts? Are we truly in sovereignty if we're constantly allowing our thoughts to think us? Now, I think the practice is just by starting to become aware of our thoughts. That's like the first step. And that's a practice in and of itself, just by noticing and just being with it as it is. But then there can be the transition now, where we start to take more of a hold of our thoughts. And vulnerably and honestly, this is what keeps me sober today, is I moved into this very deeper of conscious connection and thinking my own thoughts. And when I start to see fear and all this stuff arise, I'm not feeling it. I allow myself to feel it, and at the same time I start to pray, and I consciously connect my thoughts to that light. I know it's there. I might not perceive it in that moment because I'm in fight or flight, but I know it now. I'm so grateful. God has saved my life over and over and over again through this vessel, and being able to take command of our mind, and something will take over, and that is what I call the divine intelligence. That is the true mind of God. So thank you so much for bringing that into awareness.
We have a comment here and one last comment before I send us to lunch with a few announcements.
I was just wondering, with your experience with the guidance and meditation and prayer, do you provide any resources for guided meditation? Because I feel like that'd be a blessing.
What type of resources? Personally or other resources?
Well, I know some have recordings or channels that have pre-recorded guided meditation sessions, and you do such a wonderful job, so I thought, I'd ask.
Oh, yes, that's in the works. That's in the works. And honestly, if you really want to train, I recommend going to Vipassana meditation retreat.
Yep.
And if you've been through a significant amount of trauma, do not go there first. Work with somebody who works with the body and the emotions and that can help teach you about co-regulation and emotional regulation that's going to bring you back into what is called the window of tolerance. And we're going to teach you how to stay in that window of tolerance and be able to notice when you're going out of it into hypoarousal, which is like frozen suppression, or into hyperarousal, which is like anger and anxiety.
Who in this room can do what she just said? Who in this room offers those services? Anyone? Okay, I've got one in the back. I want to make a notice and another one. All right, Richard, and then a
Yeah,
last comment.
In answer to your question, Michael, for resources, you were here yesterday, you and Fiona, and Jeffrey Bullington spoke, and he is a valuable resource that you can access if you go to the One Heart Community website, oneheartcommunity.org, and you register, and then you will be getting a Zoom invite and access to recorded prior meditations, guided meditations, that he does on the third Monday of every month in real time by Zoom. But if you're not able to tune in by Zoom, they are stored at the oneheartcommunity.org website for replay in the future. And I can tell you, he's a longtime deep student of Walter and Leo Russell, and he has the goods. He really puts some powerful meditations together.
Thank you, Richard. So I do work one-on-one with people, those who are ready for it. Because this work is no joke, and especially if you've been through a significant amount of trauma, you have to stay committed because it's dangerous. I've seen people who started working in trauma, and they have so much happening, and then they leave it because the mind, body, and the programming and the conditioning and the pattern system comes back online. And I've known people who have very much hurt themselves. So there's a difference between guided visual meditations and the actual embodiment meditation, where we're not trying to change, control, or fix anything. We're not bringing in any visuals. We're coming back into what's here and now, and we're observing the phenomena. We're observing the phenomena that we have identified with, okay?
Last comment.
Also, there are cards on the table back there for One Heart if you're interested. But the comment I was going to make for myself anyway, my experience has been since I was a little boy that my emotions, the more I can get in touch with my emotions, the more the effect it has on the heart, triggering what my thoughts are.
Yes.
And I just thought that that was very important to share to everyone, because then when you go through the process of having trauma and everything else, and peeling away the onion, or what anybody wants to interpret or call it, that's what helps you progress with meditation and everything else as well on your journey or journeys in this lifetime, fulfilling your purposes in this lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you. Please help me thank Ashley for her gift of love.
Thank you so much.